one thing I took interest with is like, the other guys were teaching on tour, and then you started to teach on tour as well
Mm.
this past tour, right?
Well, I've been teaching on tour for a few tours now,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I was a bit more hesitant than the others just because of, as in at the start, just because of the I wasn't sure if people would be up for just coming and hitting a pad
Right.
because there's no drum kit that we can play on tour,
Right.
unfortunately. But it's been great. I've had loads of people, loads of interest. I've um, this last European tour was a little bit quiet in terms of lessons, but otherwise, every tour we've done, I've pretty much filled out with students.
Mm.
Um,
And when do you put them? Like, is it after load in, before sound check, or?
so it usually ends up being around 4 or 5 in the day, which
Mm-hmm.
is usually kind of sometimes it's just after sound check
Mm-hmm.
and kind of before the VIP event in
Mm.
that kind of hour break. It's usually around then, and yeah, I mean we cover a whole range of different things, and every lesson ends up being different. I mean, I teach, I've taught a dad brought his young kid along to have his first ever drum lesson
Wow.
once, and then I've had people who are in sort of professional working bands already who need a lesson and need to kind of they want to either brush up on their technique or just get some tips and hints on certain things that they've been after. So yeah, it's always a different kind of experience, and it's fun. It's kind of usually worth sacrificing that 3 hour I could have had. It
Yeah.
usually ends up being quite a nice hour.
It's fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been.
I
Mhm.
tend to get a bit of a buzz out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, oh God, I really really need this downtime now. And like for example, we were in Israel. Was Tel Aviv was the last show we did on the
Mm.
tour, and again we'd flown in on basically no sleep, and we had about 3 hours to kill before we had to head to the venue. So everyone went and chilled in the hotel room for 3 hours, and I taught 3 lessons back to back in the hotel lobby. And I was just like, oh shit, I really shouldn't have done this. And then every lesson just got bigger and better, and by the end of it, I was like so high on teaching.
That's awesome.
I was like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah, I'm so ready to go and load in now.
Yeah, I have a few students later on, so at this point, I just do you ever prepare in advance for a lesson, or you just kind of like you just wait for what comes, and then you
Sometimes I ask them what they want to get out of the
Mhm.
lesson in advance, usually. Sometimes I'll just say, look, just have a think, let me know what you want to cover. And they'll say, oh, yeah, cool, I'll have a think. Um, and sometimes they'll let me know before I even ask them. They'll say, I really want to cover this, 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 and this. And then I'll say, okay, we might have time for this and this, maybe not this and this. So let's prioritize. And then there's obviously like a handful of common things that come up almost every lesson as well. So in in some ways, I've taught much of the same thing many times to lots of different people.
so what's the most common thing? What's like this recurring theme of what people need to get?
Um, so I guess because of the nature of the music,
Mm-hmm.
people always want to know my approach to odd time,
Mm-hmm.
and th- they like to use the word polyrhythm
Mm-hmm.
and say, "Oh, tell me about polyrhythms," and then I'll just say, "Oh, I mean, I can show you this and this. I'm not a polyrhythm expert per se. I just kind of play in a band that plays loads of crazy time signatures, and I try to either embellish that with even more craziness or kind of simplify it out to make it headbangable.
Right.
It's kind of usually one thing or the other,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of explain the process that I often go through
Mm.
to kind of explore those areas with
Mm-hmm.
them.
You hit an
And
interesting point there at the headbangable.
yeah,
Because
exactly, yeah.
when you play very technical stuff, you have to remember it's like, wait, we're playing metal. You should be able to do this at least
Yeah,
some of the
exactly.
time, right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want people standing there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I kind of, I want them to just kind of enjoy and rock out. a lot of the time, and know that they're rocking out to really crazy shit,
Right.
and not necessarily understanding it because they don't need to, because there's a pulse in there that they can just headbang to.
Sure.
So a lot of the time I want to go down that road, and then when I feel like I've done that too much and want to do the opposite, then I'll go as far as I can in the opposite direction. But then I have to explain to them as well that I'm finding all these patterns and things that I keep latching onto that I don't want to end up being predictable. And I show them, this thing I do that's predictable, this thing I always do throughout all of these songs and throughout all this album. So then this new album is going to be something else. And just trying to, give them an idea of my thought process, and then give them some sort of basic exercises to introduce them to those approaches, really.
Right. Now, like, from a business perspective, having some lessons out on tour definitely helps. That's some money in your pocket.